Okay. I typically don't. That's just why I typically say, like, hey, don't walk across the screen, don't say anything, because if you don't want to be in the video, I do at all, so you will just be there. So, yep. But anyway, so today we're talking about symbolism. One of you guys had requested this. I don't remember whom, so I'm just keeping it vague. Symbolism can both help your novel and potentially also problems in your novel if you have too much symbolism. So now the greater question is, what is like, whoa, that was such cool symbolism, and what is like, oh my gosh, everything's a metaphor, this is so annoying. Because there is that downside, unfortunately. If everything becomes a metaphor, then you just feel like you're being taught an English lesson the whole time you're reading, and that's not fun. For most people, that is. Some English people are like, oh, that's so cool, but literally only English majors will care. Everyone else will be annoyed. So, first thing is make sure with your symbolism that it's not distracting from the plot. Your symbolism should be adding to the depth of the plot, not being like, by the way, random side tangent about symbolism for 2 pages. It should be something that they infer, not as directly stated. If you have to directly state it, it's not good symbolism. It should be something that is heavily, but not like, I'm going to tell you exactly what this means. If you have to state it precisely, then it probably shouldn't be in there. It's probably just something for you and the readers to maybe have, a little, joke for later that, nobody else knows about but you and your beta readers. Like, that's it. Um, with symbolism, the main things that people symbolize that tend to be the best are first, environment. So, nature slash the setting. Obviously, this can seem a little too cliche sometimes if it's always raining every time how someone has a funeral or is sad every time. That becomes a little cliche. It's become so cliche that people are just like, dude, does it always rain during funerals? For the record, no. I've been to lots of. It does not always rain during funerals. Yes.
I'm not really helping this case, but last funeral I went to, it did rain.
See, but that's the point. That's why you can do it on occasion. But if you're constantly having people die in your novel and it's always raining every time, it's just like, really? Where do they live? The rainforest? Like, what is happening? Like, if they live in a really rainy area, maybe that would happen. But if they live, for instance, here, I cannot remember the last time it rained.
It rained last night.
I live in Orem. I live in Orem.
It rained this morning. Like, I was walking my bus stop. And
That's cool for American Fork. It did not rain in Orem.
It's Utah. The weather is never normal.
True, but point being is that it does not rain all the time here, so that would actually be very strange. But you still can have things with nature or setting that definitely add to the plot. A great example of this is the way people dress and the way that the lighting is. They actually talked about the reason why in the second movie for Harry Potter, the professor, whatever his name is, the stupid one, um, no, the blonde. Yes, thank you. Like the dumb one, the literal epitome of dumb blonde. I hate that phrase because I'm a smart blonde. But with that being said, um, he actually is described in the books as wearing pastel colors, like borderline neon bright colors. But he doesn't wear neon bright colors in the movie. It's not because they didn't want to be realistic to the book. They actually originally had wardrobe come up with a fully pastel and neon set. And because of the fact that the movie was supposed to be darker in tone to reflect the whole like creepiness of the snake stuff, it felt very weird to be like this dark setting and then hi neon sign. So they were like, how about instead we make it like a light color that's a little more muted, that's a little more gray, so that it fit with the rest of the setting. And so as a result, even though that wasn't an example of symbolism, it is an example of how the setting very much was symbolic of the scariness and the darkness of what was happening in the movie. Um, and so as a result, Another great example. You can do that with lighting. You can do that with what is in the castle or isn't in the castle. You can do it with descriptive words. We've talked about this before, where if you have a romance scene and you describe them as having emerald eyes, you automatically see it as romantic. But if you describe them as having acid green eyes, you're going to be like, what is wrong with this man? Because nobody describes eyes like that unless you're in trouble. And so, with that kind of stuff, you're going to be a little put on edge based on your descriptors. So, you can absolutely use that as a form of symbolism, where you're using certain descriptors in order to describe someone to put people on edge. It's the kind of the equivalent of, like I said, set dressing, or similar to music, where if the music gets really intense during a really fluffy scene, you know something's about to go horribly wrong. And it's similar with descriptive words. Next thing is animals, of course. Animals are incredibly good for symbolism because they have so many symbolic meanings in religion and nature and even just physical, like, prowess of different things. You know, if you want your main character to seem really, really cool, you aren't going to describe them as a mouse, you're going to describe them as a lioness. You know, it sounds much cooler. One sounds dope, the other sounds like timid and shy. Not that mice aren't cool, but, you know, they're just not lions. It is a stereotype. I'm sorry. um, with that, you can absolutely use animals to be symbolic of all sorts of things. So if you have their spirit animal show up and it's an otter or something like that, it might symbolize that they are playful. Or if you have some sort of like dream and they have a lion in the dream, or like for example, Narnia is a wonderful example of this. 99% of it is symbolism. But the reason why he gets away with it is because he doesn't say this is symbolism. He just is like, this is a cool book. And then you see the symbolism if you want to see the symbolism. Otherwise, you just enjoy the story. And so as a result, it doesn't get in the way of anything. And he has a lot of talking animals, which helps because animals are so heavily symbolic regardless of whether or not you choose to see it. You can just have a really cool talking lion and be like, dope, Aslan is awesome. But you can also be like, ah, so much Christian symbolism there. Excuse me. Next thing is mirror characters slash foils. Mirror characters slash foils are characters that basically they can be the villain, but they're not always the villain, who make the exact same choices as the hero did up to a certain point, and then they diverge. And the reason why this is cool is because of the fact that it's showing how the hero chose to do something different. It's showing the alternate paths they had, and it's showing that they are unique. Yes, question or comment?
Like Spider-Man, like when like they both get powers because they're
Mm-hmm.
like the Green Goblin is just
Yeah.
rich.
Yeah.
And then one of them is like, I'm gonna be good, and one of them is like, I'm gonna kill him.
Exactly. That's a great example of that. Green Goblin and Spider-Man's a great example of that. Another great example of that is the I'm sorry, I'm tired. Is the newest Spider-Man as well with the Into the Spider-Verse, where he goes into an alternate dimension, and if you haven't seen the second one, needless to say, the alternate version of him very different,
Oh yeah.
made very drastically different choices. And then the live action Mulan is actually a great example of this too, because in the live action Mulan, they added another character, the sorceress. And the reason why she's so interesting is because of the fact that she was just like Mulan in the regard that she was rambunctious, she was interesting, she wanted to be, this warrior type. She wanted to fight for her country, and they said no. And if you continue, we're going to kick you out. And she continued, and they kicked her out. So instead of bringing honor to her village and to her family, she was ultimately disgraced and shunned, and as a result became this vindictive, vengeful sorceress. Whereas Mulan chose to do stuff on behalf of and for her. I don't care if it means I don't get to do what I love because I love my family more. I love them more than myself. Whereas this sorceress said, I love myself more than my family. And there's nothing wrong with loving yourself, and there's nothing wrong with loving your family, but it's about there's a balance. And Mulan found that balance where she was like, I love my family more than myself, but at the same time, I'm still going to do this for my family. I'm going to be my truest self for my family and ultimately end up saving them. And so It's about finding that balance versus just completely railing off of the side of a cliff and just disappearing. And so mirror characters slash foils, like I said, sometimes villain, but not always, can be very, very intriguing. The only trick with this kind of symbolism is you have to show just how different they are. If they're too similar, then people will start to get them mixed up or potentially even just be confused as to what their purpose is. If you make it obvious just how different they are while still, highlighting the differences, the similarities and the differences, it'll work out a lot better than if you're just like, they're exactly the same, except for one has red hair. That why? Then your reader will struggle to tell them apart. You'll struggle to tell them apart. It'll just end up being a mess. Last thing we're going to talk about is symbolism with regards to thought slash actual physical metaphors that you can use. When I say physical metaphors, I mean the way that the person is thinking actually symbolizes emotional context with inside of them. A great example of this, although I would be shocked if any of you guys have watched this just because it's a much older show, but we're on High School Host Club. It's an anime. You don't have to watch it. It's, like I said, it's a little bit on the older side, but the reason why it does this so well is because it actually shows it on screen about what their thoughts look like in it. And oftentimes it is very fascinating because of the fact that you will have moments where you're like, what is this? I don't understand it. And then when you do the same time, the characters also understand it. So, for example, at one point, they're all trying to figure out this secret about this character. And every single time that someone figures out the secret about the character, a little light bulb shows up on the screen, but it doesn't show up anywhere near them. It just literally shows a light bulb turning on. And you're like, why is there a light bulb turning on? And then by the end, when everyone gets it and you also get it, you're like, wait, it was showing when they understood it. And then they also have other scenes where, for instance, they have a character who is deeply in love with this guy, but feels like maybe he doesn't love her back. And so as a result, she shows her the inner workings of her mind as being like a Ferris wheel that isn't working. And so as a result, she's like, I have all this potential for joy and none of it's working. I don't, it's ultimately not there. And then, of course, once she actually realizes that he does love her and everything in the amusement park in her mind turns on. And it's all very cheerful and joyful and cute and fuzzy. But at the same time, it gives this very, like, cool symbolism where you're just like, oh, it makes the moment extra, like, ring true and feel good. So you can do that verbally slash written style with describing how that thought process works for them. Like, does their mind feel like a ghost town? Does their mind feel like a vibrant forest? Like, what does their mind feel like? Because I imagine you probably have that kind of feeling in your own mind. What does your own mind feel like? Is it a forest? Is it a river? Is it a boat? Turbulently being tossed at sea. These are our own metaphors that we kind of come up with in our own head unknowingly. Um, and so those can be really impactful to the reader because it's something that we haven't thought of that deepens our understanding of the human experience and our characters. All right. Questions about symbolism and how to do it well or how to not do it poorly? If there are no questions, I will just turn the video off. We will leave the thing short. Cool. You guys have 2 more weeks to write your spring myth short story if you are still interested in that. I believe it's 2 weeks. Yes. I was like, I have to check the date. But yes, it's due at the end of May. Then, if any of you are interested in writing song lyrics slash poetry for our poetry contest, those aren't due until the end of June, so you still have plenty of time for those, and you are allowed to enter 2. So feel free to do that. Just make sure you specify if you do song lyrics that it is lyrics on the little space where it says what kind of poem is this, because lyrics are a form of poetry. They're just a musical form of poetry. So yeah, just specify it's lyrics on there just so that way if there's any refrains that are repeated or different things like that, we're aware of why it's being repeated. That's why I have that, to make sure that we aren't just like, why is this 7 sentences long? Oh wait, it's a haiku. I should say words, not sentences. I'm tired. All right. Well, I'm gonna turn the video off now. And let me know if you guys have any other questions regarding other stuff.